Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about one of the most interesting topics I've ever seen in Dungeons and Dragons. It's a topic that is increasingly talked about on Twitter, and let me get right to what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about bleed in Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about what young Sheldon actress Zoe Perry um, says about bleed in playing a character in both in Dungeons and Dragons and in um, peak television, because that's what peak television. All right, so let's get into this. So first of all, this is huge. Let's talk about this. This is kind of a really big deal. Really fascinating. So first of all, let's talk about. So just so you're aware, if you're a dungeon master or a dragon master, you have to be hyper aware of what is happening with Georgie and Mandy, the new spinoff from a spinoff. Okay, so Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory is one of the core four, right? So the streaming is one of the biggest intellectual cultural battles that's happening today, and there are four shows: Friends, Seinfeld, SF, Big Bang, and Office. So I would say both Big Bang, Office, Friends, Seinfeld. Soap, Seinfeld, Office, Big Bang, Friends. Fobs, Friends, Office, Big Bang, Seinfeld. Friends, Office, Big Bang, Seinfeld. Fobs, Friends, Office, Big Bang, Seinfeld. Okay. So these four shows are outrageously important. They are absolutely critical, okay? And they're astonishingly important. And the reason why is every single streamer, without exception, is very excited to get any one of these shows. And the reason why is they're going to bring millions of viewers, they're going to bring millions of views. And those millions of viewers are going to stick around for other shows. Those millions of viewers are going to watch literally millions of hours of television on any one of these shows. It's guaranteed. And Fobs, those four shows were fighting. They were like, oh, who's going to be the top diggity dog? And that discussion is over. It's Big Bang. And the reason why is if you watch Big Bang, you're like, oh, man, that was so good. Too bad it's over. And they're like, it's not over. Here's 7 seasons of, and they're like, oh, no, don't worry. We got you covered. Here's 7 seasons of Young Sheldon. And you can finish that Young Sheldon 7 seasons and go into literally a new show that's on television right now, George and Mandy. Office doesn't have that. Seinfeld is a once and done. They got nothing else. And Jerry Seinfeld's like, we're never going to do more. Right? And you're like, dude, there's billions on the line. Why wouldn't you employ 1,000 people? Everybody gets rich and you get richer, right? And then Office. So Office doesn't have, and Friends. They're never going to get those Friends people together. One of them's literally dead now, right? And so Friends can't even do it if they want, right? Like they're never going to be able to do that show again, right? I guess you could. Actually, that's interesting. You could do the children of the Friends like that. Hey, but this is over, right? Now, what's really interesting is every dungeon master and every dragon master needs to pay really close attention to what is happening here, right? And the reason why is this is Dungeons and Dragons. It's at the top of its game. It doesn't compete. It competes only with the very top of the industry. It's just like Fobs, right? It's like only has a couple of real competitors, right? Like OSC is not a real competitor for Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe Daggerheart is. We'll see, right? So there's a lot happening, and it's a lot to think about, right? So you have all this going on, and let's get to the important part here, right? So let's get to the part where we talk about specifically. Let's get to the part where we talk in depth about Zoe Perry. So Zoe Perry is on Young Sheldon. Young Sheldon just hit season 7. Spoilers for season 7 of Young Sheldon here. So Zoe Perry plays Mary Cooper, Sheldon's mother, right? So Sheldon's dad dies in season 7, and this has been an international story, right? And there was a company that did a really phenomenal, like they were like, "Hey, we're going to jump in here. We're going to tell you exactly what happens, and we're going to talk about this in depth." And they did an interview with Lance Barber, who plays George Cooper, and they did an interview with Zoe Perry. And Zoe Perry said something fascinating. I was blown away by what she said. She said, "Listen, um, I was distraught. I was just absolutely wrecked by what was happening in this show, right? And which is really fascinating, right?" And she says, "I was personally upset, right? And so I'm playing, Sheldon Cooper's mother, but I actually have a care for the actor. I've been playing the wife of this man for 7 years, and it's emotionally impacted me. And so what I did was, when I went to the scene where I was going to talk about, where I was going to process the death of George Cooper, my fictional husband, I allowed my personal feelings to, I was ready because I was personally distraught, and I allowed that to dump right into my performance. Now, in Dungeons and Dragons, we call this bleed. This is talked about constantly on Twitter, right? And what's interesting is it's been talked about 2 times so it was talked about in 1983, and people were like, "Listen, your child will, your 12-year-old is going to play Dungeons and Dragons. They're going to get lost in their character, and they're never going to be able to find their way out, because they're going to mix their personal feelings with the feelings of their fictional character," right? Or actually, let's not even say 12-year-old. Let's say your adult child of 18 who's in college, right? You're an adult, 20-year-old adult in college is going to lose themselves in this fictional character. And so we're going to have people who don't know that they can't cast spells. We're going to have people who don't know the difference between, facing a real dragon. They won't know the difference between real and fiction. And so in 1983, they were screaming about it. Now in 2023, last year, they were still screaming about it. And they're like, bleed is foolish. You should never have bleed, because this is just fun. There's nothing to invest in. There's nothing of value here. These are beer and pretzel games. These are goblin chop games. Nothing real is happening here. So don't get invested in Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, delete your D&D Beyond account and burn your digital books, because none of it's real, and we don't want you to ever bleed, right? And they mixed all of this freely together, and they were like, "Don't bleed," right? And they were very significant about this, of saying, "Do not bleed," right? And so I thought this was really interesting. But here, Mary, Zoe Perry, who plays Mary Cooper, is purposefully bleeding, is bleeding on purpose, right? And pursuing what 2 different groups has told us in Dungeons and Dragons we have to never do, right? People are saying, "Hey, remember, you can't learn anything, you can't grow, you can't improve, you can never transform from Dungeons and Dragons. Don't bleed, don't invest yourself, because nothing here goes above the level of fun," right? And Zoe Perry is like, "Hey, my portrayal of this fictional character is so strong, I'm going to bleed myself into it," right? Like, it's astounding. She's pursuing what we are being told continuously in 1983 all the way to 2023. Don't do this, for different reasons, right? And so this is what I'm saying. We did D&D wrong for 50 years. I think Zoe Perry's right. If you're an adult, you should be seeking bleed in your Dungeons and Dragons game. And that's the point of this entire video. We've been trying to avoid bleed for 50 years. The next 50 years is building bleed, pursuing bleed, using bleed as a launch point, seeing what can be accomplished with bleed, not avoiding it, building on it as a cornerstone. That is profound. That is a new direction in Dungeons & Dragons. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.